Remember this Meri, the first wife, the legal wife, the bedrock upon which the entire Brown family empire was supposedly built. For years, we watched her navigate the complexities of plural marriage, often with a quiet grace that belied a deep, simmering strength. But as the seasons wore on, that quietness was misinterpreted by the family, by the viewers, and most critically, by Kody himself, as weakness. They thought her silence was submission. They were wrong. It was calm before the storm. Because while Kody and Robyn were busy building their monogamous life in a plural family's clothing, Meri was building something else entirely, a legal case that would become her ultimate vindication. Before we pull back the curtain on the most shocking behind-the-scenes legal battle in reality TV history, do me a huge favor. If you believe it's time for Meri to get her due, hit that powerful like button right now. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. You are not going to want to miss a single update on this story. And by joining the COCO gossip family, you'll be the first to know. Now, let's get into it. To understand the war, you have to understand the crime. And the crime, my friends, was erased. A slow, methodical, and brutally effective campaign to write Meri Brown out of her own life story. The ultimate symbol of this erasure? A barren patch of land in Flagstaff, Arizona, known as Coyote Pass. Coyote Pass wasn't just land, it was the final promise. It was the supposed culmination of the family's journey, the place where they would finally build their forever homes, side by side, a testament to their plural dream. It was sold to the wives, and to us, the viewers, as the ultimate family project. But we at COCO Gossip have been digging, and our sources very close to the family's financial dealings during this tumultuous period, have painted a very different picture. The official story is that the family pooled their resources, a noble collective effort. But here's the first exclusive COCO Gossip theory. The down payment for that $820,000 property was not an equal four-way split, not even close. We've been told by an insider, let's call them Flagstaff files, that Meri Brown, fresh off the explosive success of her LuLaRoe business and having just sold her Las Vegas home, was pressured to contribute a staggering portion of the initial capital. We're not talking about her standard family pot contribution. We are talking about a massive lump sum injection of cash. Our source claims the number was north of $150,000, money that came directly from her earnings, her hustle, her work. Think about it. In 2017 and 2018, Meri was a top-tier LuLaRoe consultant. She was earning bonus checks that were rumored to be in the 5, sometimes 6 figures, while Janelle was navigating the real estate market and Christine was finding her footing, and Robyn was busy with My Sister Wife's Closet. Meri was a financial powerhouse. Kody knew this, and according to our source, he and Robyn leveraged it. The conversation, as it was relayed to us, went something like this. Picture the scene, the chaotic rental situation in Flagstaff, the pressure mounting. Kody approaches Meri not as a loving husband, but as a CEO approaching his most profitable yet least valued employee. Kody said, Meri, we're at a critical point. The family needs this. You need this. This land is our legacy. We need to secure it, and you're the only one with the liquidity to make the big first move. It's for everyone. It's for the principal. Meri said, Of course, Kody. Everything I have is for the family. It always has been. We'll be on the deed together, right? All of us? Robyn said, Oh, honey, of course. It's just, you know how complicated the banks are. Kody's financial guy says it's cleaner, just for the initial purchase, to have fewer names on the application. It's just paperwork. We'll add everyone once the ink is dry. You know we're a team. We would never, ever leave you out. It's just paperwork. How many times have we heard that? But Meri, who had already legally divorced Kody for the sake of paperwork, to allow him to adopt Robyn's children, a sacrifice that cost her more than just a legal title, was conditioned to trust this process. She was conditioned to believe in the principle. So she did it. She transferred the money, she secured the dream, and then the first betrayal. The deeds were drawn up. The property was divided into parcels. And Meri Brown's name was nowhere to be found, not on a single one. Her massive financial stake, her claim to the family's crowning asset, had vanished into thin air, absorbed into the legal ownership of Kody, Robyn, and to a lesser extent at the time, Janelle. Christine, as we know, had her own plot, but Meri was left with nothing but a verbal promise. A promise that, according to our insiders, was never intended to be kept. This wasn't an oversight, this was a strategy. This brings us to our second insider report. Kody and Robyn had already at this point decided that Meri was a spiritual wife in name only. They saw her as an investor, not a partner. They took her money with the private understanding that her real share was the privilege of remaining in the family's orbit. For months, which turned into years, Meri would gently inquire. Meri said, "Kody, have you spoken to the lawyer about adding my name to my parcel?" Kody said, "Not now, Meri. The timing isn't right. We have to deal with the infrastructure, the utilities. It's a process. Just be patient." Then the excuses changed. Kody said, "Look, with the way you've been, so distant, so checked out, we need to see you're really committed to this family before we make these kinds of permanent legal decisions. It's about loyalty, Meri." The final, cruelest justification, allegedly delivered by Robyn in a tearful, manipulative phone call, as reported by a source who was close to Meri during this time. Robyn said, "Meri, I don't understand why you keep pushing this. It makes it feel like you don't trust us, like you don't trust Kody. This land is for the whole family, for the kids, for the grandkids. Why do you need your name on a piece of paper? Isn't our spiritual commitment enough? Your pressure is really putting a strain on Kody, on us." The gaslighting was complete. Her financial contribution was accepted, banked, and then used as a cage. She was told her desire for legal recognition of her own investment was an act of disloyalty. She was being erased in real time, and her struggle to be seen was being framed as the problem. The unseen war. So what does a woman do when she realizes she's been the primary funder of a dream she's been systematically excluded from? For years, she did what she always did. She stayed quiet. She focused on her B&B in Utah, Lizzie's Heritage Inn, a property she had to fight tooth and nail to fund on her own. Remember that? She poured her energy into her business. She traveled. She built a life for herself, by herself. But the injustice of Coyote Pass festered. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the decades of sacrifice. The first 24 years of marriage, where she was the only legal wife, the primary breadwinner in the early days, the woman who held down the fort while Kody courted new wives, the woman who agreed to a legal divorce for the good of the family, only to see that act of selflessness used against her time and time again. The catalyst for the war, according to our most trusted source, was not one big blow-up, it was a death by 1,000 cuts. The final cut, however, was a conversation Meri allegedly overheard. This is our most explosive, exclusive COCO gossip theory, yet a moment that has never been spoken of outside a very, very small circle. It was late 2021. The family was fractured beyond repair. Christine was gone. Janelle was living in an RV on the property Meri wasn't even on the deed for. Meri had stopped by the main house for a reason she herself probably couldn't articulate. A flicker of hope for connection, perhaps. She was about to knock when she heard voices from inside. Kody and Robyn. They were talking about the future of Coyote Pass, and they were talking about her. Kody said, "Dua." And she keeps bringing it up. The money. It's unbelievable. What about the money I spent on her for decades? What about the brand? She made that LuLaRoe money because she was on my show. It's family money. She doesn't seem to understand the family gave her that platform. Robyn said, "I know, sweetie, it's so hard. She just doesn't see the big picture. And honestly, what would she even do with a plot of land here? She's never here. She doesn't have a relationship with you. It would be a monument to a failed marriage right in our backyard. It's better this way. It's spiritually hers, in a way. That's what matters." It's better this way. That was it. That was the moment the Meri Brown we knew. The quiet, accommodating, long-suffering Meri died. And in her place, a strategist was born. She walked away from that door without a word. The hurt, we are told, was immense. But for the first time, it was eclipsed by a cold, clear-eyed fury. The war had begun, but the enemy wouldn't even know it for another 6 months. Meri's preparation was a masterclass in stealth. She didn't make threats. She didn't have emotional confrontations. She started making quiet trips, not to see family, but to Phoenix, to Scottsdale, to the offices of one of Arizona's most formidable female-led family law and asset recovery firms. This is an insider report, but one we find incredibly credible. She didn't go for a bulldog male lawyer who would posture and shout. She chose a team of women who specialized in untangling complex financial webs, women who understood what it meant to be financially sidelined in a partnership. For months, Meri and her legal team worked in secret, building a mountain of evidence. And this is where her years of being a meticulous business owner paid off. She had everything. Bank statements from 2018 showing the massive wire transfer into the family account just before the Coyote Pass closing date. Emails to Kody where she lovingly talked about her excitement to build our home on my plot. Text messages, hundreds of them. Gentle reminders, hopeful questions, all met with deflection and delay. She had records of her LuLaRoe income proving the source of the funds. She had appraisals of her Las Vegas home showing the equity she rolled into the family pot. She was compiling a dossier on her own erasure. Every broken promise, every dollar she contributed, every dismissive text message, it was all going into the file. Her legal team, we are told, was stunned. They had a client who was not only wronged, but who had the receipts to prove it, meticulously archived. While Kody was performing for the TLC cameras, ranting about loyalty and patriarchy, Meri was preparing for a different kind of performance. A performance in a courtroom where facts matter more than feelings, and where financial records trump tearful proclamations of family. The day the papers were served is a day that will go down in Brown family history, even if it never airs on television. According to our source, Flagstaff Files, it was a crisp autumn afternoon in 2022. Kody and Robyn were at home, likely filming one of their couch confessionals where they lament the state of the family they themselves fractured. A nondescript sedan pulled up the long driveway. A man in a polo shirt, a process server, walked to the door. Robyn, we are told, answered the door. The man asked if Kody Brown and Robyn Brown were present. She confirmed. He handed her 2 thick envelopes. "You've been served," he said, and walked away. The confusion, we're told, quickly turned to horror as they opened the envelopes. It wasn't a lawsuit from a disgruntled contractor or a tax issue. The plaintiff's name at the top of the legal summons was one they never, in their wildest dreams, expected to see in this context. The lawsuit was a bombshell. It wasn't a petition for spiritual divorce. It wasn't an emotional plea. It was a cold, hard civil suit. The charges, paraphrased from legal jargon, were clear: fraudulent inducement, unjust enrichment, and a petition for partition by sale of the Coyote Pass property. In layman's terms, you tricked me into giving you my money for a property, you unjustly enriched yourselves with my investment while giving me nothing in return, and now I want what is legally mine. And if you can't give me my share, a judge will force you to sell the whole thing and pay me out. The reaction inside that house was, as our source described it, apocalyptic. Kody's response was pure, unfiltered rage. This wasn't just a lawsuit, it was the ultimate act of defiance against his authority. Kody said, "How dare she? After everything, I am the one who built this family. I am the one who gave her a life, a platform. This is treason. This is a knife in the kidneys. She's trying to take my land. The family's land. She is no longer a part of this family. This proves it." His tirade, we're told, lasted for hours. It was a storm of self-pity, blame, and wounded pride. He couldn't see the financial argument. He could only see the challenge to his throne. Robyn's reaction was, predictably, a flood of tears. But these weren't just sad tears, according to our source. They were tears of strategic panic. Robyn said, "Well, I don't understand. I just don't understand. We loved her. We were trying to protect her. Why is she doing this to us? To the family? To my children? Doesn't she know what this will do to us? She wants to make us sell our forever home, where we were supposed to grow old. She is being so selfish." Notice the language. Doing this to us, not why does she feel she has to do this? The victim narrative was deployed instantly. The lawsuit wasn't the consequence of their actions, it was an unprovoked attack. And what about the other wives? The news hit them in different ways. This is another insider report, but one that rings with the truth of what we've seen publicly. Janelle, ever the pragmatist, was allegedly not surprised. She had had her own financial battles with Kody. She knew Meri had been screwed over. While she couldn't legally join the suit due to her own complicated commingling of assets with Kody, our source says she made a quiet phone call to Meri that night. Janelle said, "You're doing what you have to do, Meri. Don't let them make you feel guilty. It's business. It should have been handled as business years ago. Stay strong." Janelle, we are told, saw it for what it was, a business dispute, a long overdue financial reckoning. Christine, already free and thriving in Utah, was Meri's inspiration. Meri had watched Christine choose herself and flourish. Now, Christine was her biggest cheerleader from afar. A source close to Christine said she was giddy with the news. "Good for her, she allegedly told a friend. "It's about damn time somebody held him accountable on paper." The battle lines were drawn. On one side, Meri, armed with receipts, a high-powered legal team, and the quiet support of the other ex-wives. On the other side, Kody and Robyn, armed with a narrative of betrayal, a sense of entitlement, and the looming threat of having their carefully constructed kingdom financially dismantled. The quiet, accommodating first wife was gone. In her place was a plaintiff. And she was coming to collect the discovery process, the depositions, the pretrial motions. It was a brutal 18-month slog, all happening completely in secret, while the show we were watching was a year or two behind, still showing the last dying members of the family we once knew. Kody and Robyn, we're told, tried everything to have the case dismissed. They argued it was a familial ecclesiastical matter, not for a civil court. The judge, reportedly, was not impressed. Financial contributions and property deeds, the judge ruled, were very much a matter for the court. They were trapped. They couldn't ignore the summons. They were going to have to face Meri, not on a couch with a TLC producer, but in a court of law, under oath, and the stage was being set for a confrontation that would make every family argument on the show look like a pleasant tea party. For 2 years, the legal battle for Coyote Pass raged behind the scenes. Motions were filed, evidence was submitted, and depositions were taken. Our sources tell us the depositions were a bloodbath. Kody, reportedly, was belligerent and evasive. Robyn, we're told, cried through most of hers, claiming she couldn't recall specific financial details, only the emotional truth of the family's dream. But depositions are one thing. A public trial, even one kept off the media's radar, is another. Here, under the watchful eye of a Superior Court judge in Coconino County, Arizona, the narratives would be tested against cold, hard evidence. Let's set the scene based on detailed descriptions from a legal insider. We'll call this source Courtroom Confidential. This wasn't a grand, wood-paneled chamber from a movie. It was a modern, sterile, and unforgivingly bland government room. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, functional furniture. A place where theatrics die and facts are supposed to prevail. Meri arrived each day, not with an entourage, but with her lead attorney. She wore simple professional business attire, dark pantsuits, crisp blouses. Her demeanor, according to our source, was unnervingly calm. She wasn't there to cry or scream, she was there to present a case. She looked less like a scorned sister wife and more like the CEO of her own justice. Kody and Robyn, in stark contrast, treated the courtroom like a TLC confessional couch. They sat close together, Robyn often clutching Kody's arm. Kody, we're told, was a coiled spring of nervous energy, scowling, shaking his head, and muttering to his lawyer. The trial began with opening statements. Meri's lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s, laid out a simple, devastating timeline of financial transactions and broken promises. It was a story of a business deal wrapped in the language of faith and family. Kody and Robyn's lawyer argued that this was a familial dispute being wrongfully litigated in a civil court, that all funds were part of a religious and communal family pot, and that Meri's suit was a malicious act of a disgruntled ex-family member. The main event, of course, was the testimony, and the star witness for the defense was intended to be Meri Brown. They believed her tears and her testimony about the big family picture would win the judge's sympathy. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. This brings us to our next exclusive COCO gossip report from Courtroom Confidential. Robyn's testimony on the stand. Robyn's lawyer led her through a series of gentle questions designed to paint her as the family's selfless glue. Robyn said, "All I ever wanted was a big, happy family. When we bought Coyote Pass, it was for all of us, for our kids to run and play, for us all to be together. The paperwork, I never paid much attention to the paperwork. I just trusted Kody. I trusted that we were all in it together. It was never about excluding anyone, ever, especially not Meri. I loved Meri." It was a convincing performance. Our source says she even dabbed her eyes with a tissue. But then, it was time for the cross-examination by Meri's attorney, and the gloves came off. The lawyer approached, holding a binder. It was Meri's dossier of evidence. Meri's lawyer said, "Mrs. Brown, you say you loved Meri. Would you agree that in a loving, equitable partnership, a contribution of over $150,000 towards a joint asset would warrant that person's name on the deed?" Robyn said, "Well, it's not a normal partnership. It's a family. The money, it all just went into one pot. It's not like my money and her money." Meri's lawyer said, "I see. So it's all one family pot. Then can you explain to the court why, when the property was purchased and deeded, the only names on the parcels were yours, your husband's, and Janelle's? If it's one pot, why weren't all 4 wives, the contributors to that pot, legally recognized on the deeds?" Robyn said, It was for financing, the bank. It was simpler. We were going to add her later. We promised." The lawyer then, according to our source, produced a document. A fictionalized version flashes on screen titled, "Exhibit A, Email Correspondence." Meri's lawyer said, "This is an email from you to your husband, dated 2 weeks after the closing, which we obtained in discovery. In it you write, and I quote, 'We need to hold off on any changes to the deeds. Meri's attitude has been very negative, and we need to be sure of her loyalty before making it permanent.' Do you recall writing that?" Silence. The courtroom, we're told, was dead quiet. Robyn stared at the paper, her face pale. Robyn said, I was just concerned. I was concerned for the family. Her negativity was a threat to us all." Meri's lawyer said, "So you admit you made a conscious decision to keep her name off the deed as a form of leverage over her, is that correct? You took her 6-figure investment and then decided to hold her legal ownership hostage based on her attitude?" Robyn said, "No, that's not it. You're twisting my words. I was just trying to keep my family together." Sobs. The performance that was meant to elicit sympathy had backfired. It exposed the truth. They didn't see Meri as a partner. They saw her as a subordinate to be managed. The family was a hierarchy, and she had been demoted. Next up was Kody, and if Robyn's testimony was a disaster, Kody's was a self-immolating dumpster fire. He came in hot, treating Meri's lawyer like he treated the wives in his living room. He was arrogant, condescending, and most importantly, he couldn't keep his story straight. He tried to argue that Meri's money was owed to him. Kody said, "Let's be clear. Any money she made under the umbrella of this family. The show, the brand. I created that. It's all family money, which means it's my money to delegate as the head of this family. I put a roof over her head for 30 years. Meri's lawyer said, "Mr. Brown, are you testifying under oath, that you believe your wife's independent income is your personal property?" Kody said, "I'm testifying that in a patriarchal structure, which is what she signed up for, the patriarch leads. He makes the financial decisions for the good of the whole. This lawsuit is an attack on that very principle. It is an attack on my family, on my faith." "Our source, Courtroom Confidential," said the judge. A woman looked on, completely stone-faced. Kody's rants about patriarchy were not landing well in a court of law in the 21st century. The final blow came when Meri's lawyer presented Kody with the text messages. Meri's lawyer said, "Mr. Brown, on 12 separate occasions over 2 years, Meri texted you asking about the status of her deed. On each occasion, you responded with a delay tactic. Too busy, bad timing, let's talk later." Was it ever your intention to add her name to that deed? Kody said, My intention was to have a loyal, loving wife, not a business partner who is constantly questioning my leadership. If she had been a good wife, a wife in full fellowship, yes, she would have her name on the land, but she abandoned this family emotionally years ago. She doesn't deserve a piece of the promised land. And there it was, the admission. He said the quiet part out loud. It wasn't about financing, it wasn't about logistics, it was a punishment, it was a deliberate emotional and financial execution. He had just confirmed Meri's entire case under oath. His own lawyer, we are told, put his head in his hands. After weeks of testimony, it was time for the closing arguments and the judge's final ruling. There was no jury. It was a bench trial, meaning the judge alone would decide the outcome. Kody and Robyn's lawyer made a final, impassioned plea about family and faith. Meri's lawyer simply restated the facts. A financial contribution was made for a specific purpose. The recipient of that contribution did not fulfill their end of the agreement. It was a breach of contract, plain and simple. The judge took a recess to review her notes. When she returned, she looked out over the courtroom and began to speak. Our source relayed the essence of her judgment. Judge said, This court does not preside over matters of faith or familial structure. It presides over matters of law and equity. The arguments regarding a patriarchal system or a wife's perceived loyalty have no bearing on the financial realities presented as evidence. The evidence is clear. The plaintiff, Meri Brown, made a significant financial contribution, traceable through bank records, directly for the purpose of the acquisition of the real estate known as Coyote Pass. The defendants, Kody Brown and Robyn Brown, while accepting this contribution, failed to provide the plaintiff with the legal ownership that would be expected from such a transaction. The defendant's own testimony confirms that this exclusion was intentional and used as a form of leverage which constitutes bad faith. The judge paused, looking directly at Kody and Robyn. Judge said, You cannot have it both ways. You cannot claim a communal, one-pot family structure when it is time to receive funds, and then switch to a hierarchical, exclusionary structure when it is time to grant ownership. The law requires fairness. This was not fair. And then, the final ruling, the Vindication. Ruling. The entire Coyote Pass property is to be professionally appraised for its current market value within 90 days. Based on the proven initial investment, adjusted for the property's appreciation in value, Meri Brown is awarded a full 25% share of the total appraised value. The defendants, Kody and Robyn Brown, are ordered to either buy out the plaintiff's share in cash within 180 days, or the entire Coyote Pass property will be subject to a court-ordered partition by sale, with the proceeds to be divided according to the ownership shares. It was a total, complete victory for Meri. Kody and Robyn were left with an impossible choice. Either find a massive amount of cash, likely over $500,000 by current market values, to pay Meri what she was owed, or be forced to sell the entire property, their promised land, their forever home, and hand Meri a check. The reaction, as told by Courtroom Confidential, was cinematic. Kody sat, stunned, his face a mixture of disbelief and fury. Robyn dissolved into silent, shuddering sobs. And Meri? She did not cheer, she did not gloat, she simply closed her eyes for a moment. A single tear, a tear of relief after a decade of silent pain, traced a path down her cheek. She wiped it away, stood up, shook her lawyer's hand, and walked out of the courtroom, head held high. She hadn't just won her money back, she had won her story back. She had forced the family and the law to acknowledge her contribution. Her name might not have been on the deed, but it was now etched into a court order that could not be ignored, erased, or gaslit away. What happens now? Our final exclusive theory is that Kody and Robyn cannot afford to buy Meri out. Their lifestyle, the massive house, the dependents, they don't have that kind of cash. They will be forced to sell Coyote Pass. The dream is officially dead, and Meri Brown is the one holding the hammer. She will walk away with a fortune she earned, free from the financial and emotional baggage of a family that took her for granted. She can take that money and invest it in her B&B, travel the world, or build her own dream house on her own terms, beholden to no one. In the end, this wasn't just a war for land or money. It was Meri's war for her own legacy. It was a quiet battle, fought not with tears and confrontation on a reality show, but with evidence and resolve in a court of law. And in that quiet, silent war, the first wife, the original, the one they tried to write out of history, had the last word. What do you think of this incredible outcome? Was this the ultimate karma for Kody and Robyn? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And please, if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We will be following the fallout from this earth-shattering verdict, and we'll bring you any new updates as soon as our sources get them to us. Thanks for watching COCO Gossip. We'll see you in the next video.